The Mountain Manifesto, the tools of our resistance. We have to forge an arsenal of freedom because weapons of the minds and the hands and the architecture of defiance, they will require things. Resistance demands more than passion. It demands precision, discipline, and strategy. And against the machinery of domination, we have to wield these tools that are forged in solidarity and sharpened by our purpose. We're not rabble. We're architects of disruption, builders of resilience, and engineers of freedom. And this is not rebellion for its own sake. It's a rebellion to reclaim what has been stolen from us. So, without further ado, these are some of the tools of resistance. You should look into them. Affinity groups and cell structures. Building unbreakable webs. The old world crumbles, but its sentries are vigilant. Our response must be decentralized and adaptive. Affinity groups are small, autonomous cells bound by trust. Become the veins and the arteries of a living resistance. These groups operate in the shadows. They coordinate, but they're independent, and they're impervious to infiltration if they are done right. Affinity groups offer flexibility because cells can pivot in an instant, striking where the system's weakest and disappearing before it retaliates. Affinity cells offer secrecy because a shared purpose and encrypted communication can insulate groups from surveillance, ensuring that movement survives even when it's attacked. And affinity groups have an impact because they can offer coordinated strikes, protests, boycotts, and economic sabotage, and they can deliver blows that cannot be traced to a single source, keeping the system off balance. Another tool is mutual aid networks. These are the backbone of survival. We will not survive alone. Mutual aid networks transform isolated rebel groups into a unified force. Food, medicine, shelter, knowledge, these all flow freely within these networks, and they sustain bodies and the spirits of the people that have those bodies through hardship. We're looking for solidarity over charity. We don't give handouts. We lift each other up. Skill sharing. Create workshops in permaculture and first aid and defense to ensure that no one is left unprepared. Resilience. In times of collapse, mutual aid networks become lifelines. They prove that we don't need the system to survive. Another tool in your toolbox is culture jamming, sabotaging the mind prison. Now, the enemy's greatest weapon is the lie, the illusion of consent, and the mirage of inevitability. We shatter those mirrors and we scatter their smoke with culture jamming. What is culture jamming? Media hijacking, putting up posters, creating memes, using graffiti to infiltrate their pristine narratives with seeds of doubt and rebellion. Technological subversion. We use decentralized networks to amplify the truth. We bypass the algorithmic chains of corporate platforms, and using disinformation as disruption. Misinformation, like static on a wire, forces the system to expend resources, containing the chaos and eroding its control. We poison their well of propaganda, and we force people to question what they see, what they hear, and what they are told. We have to break the chains, and this requires radical tactics for desperate times. The masters of this system have no shame, and we cannot afford to be naive. Where nonviolence ends, disruption begins. Radical action becomes necessary when survival is at stake, and these can include sabotage to things like infrastructure grids. Bring them to a halt. When the gears are jammed, they cannot function. Supply chains falter when their links are severed. Bureaucratic floods. Bureaucracies drown when buried in forms and demands. Their mechanisms are stalled by their own inefficiency, and we can use that against them, creating bureaucratic floods. Economic resistance. Tax resistance and strikes siphon power from their coffers, and they bleed the beast dry. They make them put resources in places where they don't want to put resources, and that means that those resources can't be used in things that we don't want those resources used for. Many of you have heard about underground railroads from the times of slavery in the United States. Well, underground railroads are not just for escaped slaves. They're to shelter the persecuted. For those hunted by the system, escape routes must be built. Safe houses, encrypted communications, clandestine transportation routes. These are the arteries of survival. The mountain isn't just a metaphor. It's a destination. And the roads must be paved, but they must be paved in secrecy and with courage. So, We need to use encryption. Privacy tools cloak our identities and actions. They shield rebels from prying eyes. Sanctuary networks. Shelters provide food, medical care, and rest for those who are on the run. And there will be those on the run. False trails. These create decoys and misinformation and mislead pursuers, buying time for true escapes. People will need to escape. This is a warning and a promise. We do not advocate violence against people, but we refuse to sanctify the machinery of oppression. The cost of obedience is annihilation. The cost of resistance is freedom. The old world will fight to hold its chains in place, but we will tear them down link by link and strike by strike. History is not written by the watchers, my friends. It's written by the movers, the builders, the rebels. Let every broken lock, every uprooted fence, and every breached firewall stand as testimony. We are coming. The mountain calls, and we will rise. Stand ready, strike hard, build relentlessly. The summit awaits.